I took a deep breath as I slid the key into the lock, a mix of emotions swirling within me. Excitement to be home after giving birth to our beautiful daughter, but also a nagging sense of unease. Something didn't feel right. As the door creaked open, the first thing that caught my eye was the sleek, black luxury car parked in the driveway. Harrison's old Toyota sat beside it, a stark contrast to the unfamiliar vehicle. "Honey, I'm home," I called out, my voice echoing through the silent house. No response. I made my way upstairs, the floorboards groaning beneath my feet. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of laughter, muffled but distinct, coming from our bedroom. My heart pounded as I crept closer, the laughter growing louder with each step. I reached for the doorknob, hesitating for a moment before slowly turning it. The sight before me shattered my world into a million pieces. There was Harrison, tangled in the sheets with a woman whose face I couldn't see, her long dark hair splayed across the pillow. I stumbled backwards, my hand covering my mouth to stifle the scream that threatened to escape. Harrison's head whipped around, his eyes widening in horror as he registered my presence. "Mira, it's not what it looks like," he stammered, scrambling to untangle himself from the woman's embrace. The woman, now fully aware of the situation, let out a yelp and clutched the sheets to her chest, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Who is she?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. Harrison opened his mouth, but no words came out. The woman remained silent, her eyes downcast. Without another word, I turned and fled, my vision blurred by the tears streaming down my face. How could he do this to me, to our family, mere days after I had given birth to our child? As I stumbled down the stairs, my foot caught on the edge of a step, and I tumbled forward, my body bracing for impact. But I never hit the ground. Instead, I landed in a dark, endless abyss, the weight of Harrison's betrayal dragging me deeper and deeper into despair. I found myself at Lana's place, the tear stains on my cheeks drying into a crusty reminder of the betrayal I had just witnessed. My mind raced, struggling to make sense of it all. "That bastard!" Lana fumed, pacing back and forth across the living room. "How could he do this to you, especially now?" I shook my head, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know. I thought we were happy." Lana stopped in front of me, her eyes blazing with fury. "You know what you need to do, right? You can't let him get away with this." I looked up at her, my eyes still raw from the tears. "What do you mean?" "Evidence," she stated firmly. "You need to get proof of his affair. That way, you can expose him for the cheating scumbag he is." My initial instinct was to protest, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If I was going to salvage any shred of dignity from this mess, I needed to fight back. Without a word, I grabbed my phone and headed back to the house, Lana hot on my heels. The black luxury car was still there, a stark reminder of the stranger who had invaded my home, my life. I crept inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The house was silent, save for the faint sound of voices coming from upstairs. I motioned for Lana to stay back as I inched closer to the bedroom door. "Can't believe she came home early," the unfamiliar female voice murmured. "I know, it was a close call," Harrison's voice responded, dripping with guilt. My hands shook as I lifted the phone, pressing the record button. This was it, the proof I needed. "Don't worry, Evelyn," Harrison continued. "She'll never find out about us." "I'll handle it." Evelyn, so that was her name. "You'd better," she retorted. "I'm not about to become the other woman, not again." I had heard enough. With trembling fingers, I stopped the recording and slipped back downstairs, my heart pounding in my ears. Lana was waiting for me, her eyes wide with anticipation. Without a word, I played the audio, her expression morphing from curiosity to pure rage. That lying, cheating son of a... She trailed off, her fists clenched at her sides. I nodded, my jaw set with determination. Now we know who she is, and we're going to make sure everyone else does too. Harrison's world was about to come crashing down around him, and this time there would be no hiding from the truth. Over the next few days, Lana and I became detectives, piecing together the sordid details of Harrison's affair. We discovered that Evelyn was a coworker of his at the law firm, and their indiscretion had been going on for months. "Just look at these texts," Lana seethed, shoving her phone in my face. It was a screenshot of a conversation between Harrison and Evelyn, filled with suggestive comments and innuendos. I can't believe he was carrying on like this while I was pregnant, I murmured, my stomach churning. Lana wrapped a comforting arm around my shoulder. That's why we have to expose him, Mira. He can't get away with this. With each new piece of evidence we uncovered, the anger inside me grew hotter, fueling my determination to make Harrison pay for his betrayal. One night, as Lana and I were scouring through Harrison's emails, we stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. Mira, look at this, Lana said, her voice trembling. It was a hotel reservation booked for the weekend of my due date. The room was paid for in advance, and the receipt listed both Harrison and Evelyn's names. He was going to leave me alone to give birth while he was off with her, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. Lana's expression was one of pure disgust. That's it. I've had enough of this scumbag. We're going to take him down once and for all. I nodded, my jaw set with resolve. Harrison had dug his own grave, and it was time to bury him in it. Over the next few days, we meticulously compiled every shred of evidence we had gathered, text messages, emails, hotel receipts, even the audio recording from that fateful night. It was all there, a damning testament to Harrison's deceit. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Lana and I had arranged a dinner under the guise of attempting to reconcile with Harrison. Little did he know, we had invited not only his family, but a few of our closest mutual friends as well. As Harrison arrived, I could see the confusion on his face. He shot me a questioning look, but I simply smiled and ushered him inside. The tension in the room was palpable as we all took our seats around the table. Harrison's parents sat silently, their expressions unreadable. "What's going on here?" Harrison asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "Just a little dinner party," I replied coolly. "After all, we have something to celebrate." Harrison's brow furrowed, but before he could press further, our friends began to arrive. One by one they filed in, their gazes fixed on Harrison with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. As the final guest took their seat, I stood up, my hands trembling slightly. This was it, the moment of truth. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within me. "I know you're probably wondering why I've gathered you here tonight." In the days leading up to the dinner, Lana and I meticulously planned every detail. We wanted to make sure Harrison had no idea what was coming, no chance to wriggle his way out of the web we had woven. "We need to invite his parents," Lana said, scribbling furiously on a notepad. "And maybe a few of your mutual friends, too." I nodded, my jaw clenched with determination. The more people who see him for the snake he really is, the better. Lana looked up from her notes, her eyes blazing with fury. "He's not going to know what hit him." With each passing day, my anger grew hotter, fueling my need for vengeance. Harrison had not only betrayed me, but our entire family, our friends, our vows. He deserved to pay for his actions, and I was going to make sure he did. Finally, the night of the dinner arrived. As I put the finishing touches on the table settings, my hands trembled ever so slightly. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. The doorbell rang, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Lena squeezed my shoulder reassuringly as I went to answer the door. Harrison stood on the other side, a confused expression on his face. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping inside. "Just a little dinner party," I replied coolly, ushering him into the dining room. "After all, we have something to celebrate." His brow furrowed, but before he could press further, the doorbell rang again, and again, and again. One by one, our guests arrived. Harrison's parents, their faces etched with concern, followed by a handful of our closest friends. The tension in the room was palpable as they all took their seats around the table, their gazes fixed on Harrison with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Mira, what is this?" Harrison hissed, leaning in close to me. "What are you up to?" I simply smiled, my heart pounding in my chest. "You'll see." As the final guest took their seat, I stood up, smoothing my hands over my dress. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when Harrison's world came crashing down around him. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within me. "I know you're probably wondering why I've gathered you here tonight." I paused, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. Harrison shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his gaze darting around the table. "Well, the truth is, I have something to share with all of you," I continued. Something that involves my husband, Harrison. A hush fell over the room, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. You see, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word, Harrison has been keeping a secret from us, a secret that threatens to tear our family apart. Harrison's face had gone pale, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Mira, what are you talking about? He stammered, but I held up a hand, silencing him. I think it's time we all saw the truth, I said, reaching into my pocket and pulling out my phone. With a few taps, the audio recording from that fateful night began to play, filling the room with the damning evidence of Harrison's affair. As the recording played, the shock on everyone's faces was palpable. Harrison's parents looked as though they had been slapped, while our friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, shooting him accusatory glances. When the recording ended, I lifted my chin, meeting Harrison's gaze head-on. That's right, Harrison. I know all about your little tryst with Evelyn. The room erupted into a cacophony of gasps and whispers, but I remained focused on Harrison, whose face had drained of all color. Mira, please, he begged, his voice trembling. Let me explain. But it was too late for explanations. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. The silence that followed was deafening. Harrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. The betrayal was written all over his face. How could you, son? His father finally spoke up, his voice thick with disappointment. After everything your mother and I have done for you? Harrison's gaze shifted to his parents, his eyes pleading. Dad, I don't know what to say. Don't bother. His mother spat, her lips pursed in a tight line. I've heard enough. The tension in the room was palpable, each person shooting Harrison looks of disgust and disbelief. Even our closest friends, the ones who had stood by our side through thick and thin, couldn't bring themselves to meet his gaze. Mira, please, Harrison begged, turning to me with tears in his eyes. You have to believe me, it didn't mean anything. It was just a stupid mistake. I scoffed, shaking my head in disgust. A mistake? You've been carrying on this affair for months, Harrison. Months. My voice rose, the anger and hurt I'd been bottling up finally bubbling to the surface. And to think you were going to leave me alone to give birth while you were off with her. The room erupted into a chorus of gasps and muttered curses, all eyes now fixed on Harrison, with a mixture of shock and revulsion. Is this true? His father demanded, his face contorted with rage. Harrison opened his mouth, but no words came out. He simply sat there, like a deer caught in the headlights, as the weight of his actions crashed down around him. I trusted you, I continued, my voice trembling with emotion. I gave you everything, my love, my loyalty, my body. And this is how you repay me? Harrison shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. Mira, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Save it, I spat, my anger boiling over. I'm done with your lies, your excuses. You've made your bed, now you can lie in it. With that, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, the stunned silence of our guests following me like a heavy cloud. I had said my piece, laid everything out on the table for the world to see. As I collapsed onto the couch in the living room, the dam finally broke, and the tears came pouring out. I had never felt so hurt, so betrayed in my entire life. But through the pain, a flicker of satisfaction burned within me. Harrison's secret was out, his reputation in tatters. And as much as it hurt me, I knew he deserved every bit of the humiliation and disgrace that was sure to come. In that moment, I made a silent vow to myself. I would get through this, no matter what it took. Harrison might have broken my heart, but he would never break my spirit. In the days that followed, word of Harrison's affair spread through our community like wildfire. The once respected lawyer was now the subject of whispers and sidelong glances wherever he went. Did you hear about Harrison Green? I overheard someone say at the grocery store. Cheated on his wife with some coworker right after she had their baby. I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction as I watched Harrison's world crumble around him. He had brought this upon himself with his selfish actions, and now he was reaping the consequences. Even at work, Harrison was not immune to the fallout. His colleagues, many of whom had once considered him a friend, now treated him with thinly veiled contempt. How could you do that to your family, man? I heard one of them confront him in the break room. You've got a wife and a newborn at home, and you're out screwing around with some other woman? Harrison hung his head in shame, unable to meet their accusing stares. As for me, I found myself buoyed by an unexpected wave of support from those around me. Friends and neighbors I had once considered mere acquaintances rallied to my side, offering words of encouragement and sympathy. "What that scumbag did is unforgivable," Lana fumed one day as we sat sipping coffee. "But you're handling it with such strength and grace, Mira." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell within me. I have to be strong, for my daughter's sake. With each passing day, my resolve hardened. I knew that this was just the beginning, the first step in securing a better future for myself and my child, free from the weight of Harrison's betrayal. And so, with the support of my friends and family, I did what I had to do. I filed for divorce. The look on Harrison's face when he was served with the papers was one I would never forget. His eyes widened in shock, his mouth agape as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Mira, wait," he pleaded, trailing after me as I strode out of the courthouse. "Let's talk about this. We can work it out, I swear." I whirled around to face him, my eyes blazing with fury. "Work it out? You really think I'd want to stay with a lying, cheating scumbag like you?" Harrison recoiled as if I had slapped him, his expression crumpling. "But the baby," he stammered. "What about our daughter?" A mirthless laugh escaped my lips. "You lost the right to call her your daughter the moment you decided to betray this family." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Harrison to stew in the mess he had created. I had no more words, no more energy to waste on him. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, Harrison's reputation continued to plummet. His once sterling professional image was now tarnished, his name synonymous with infidelity and betrayal. And through it all, I stood tall, bolstered by the knowledge that I was doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for my daughter. She deserved a father who would put her first, not one who would discard her for a fleeting dalliance. In the end, the court ruled overwhelmingly in my favor, granting me full custody and a sizable settlement. Harrison's selfish actions had cost him dearly, both in reputation and in financial stability. As I left the courthouse that day, clutching my daughter close, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The chapter of my life with Harrison was finally closed, and a new one was just beginning. One filled with the promise of a fresh start, free from the shackles of his betrayal. With the divorce finalized, I thought the worst was behind me. But Harrison had one last trick up his sleeve. A desperate attempt to cling to the life he had so carelessly thrown away. It started with a flurry of legal filings, Harrison's lawyers crying foul over the custody arrangement. He claimed it was unfair for me to be granted full custody, that our daughter deserved to have her father in her life. He's the one who chose to abandon her, Lana spat when I told her the news. By being a selfish, cheating jerk. Still, the thought of having to face Harrison in court again made my stomach churn. I had hoped to put that chapter of my life behind me, to move forward and focus on building a happy, stable home for my little girl. But Harrison wasn't going to make it that easy. The first hearing was a circus, with his lawyers painting him as a devoted father who had simply made a mistake. They tried to cast doubt on my character, insinuating that I was vindictive and unfit to be a single parent. "Your Honor, my client loves his daughter more than anything," Harrison's lawyer droned on. "He's prepared to do whatever it takes to be a part of her life." I had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming. The audacity of that man, to claim he loved our daughter after the way he had treated us. It was sickening. But I remained calm, steadfast in my resolve. I had the truth on my side, and I knew the court would see through Harrison's desperate ploys. Sure enough, when it came time for me to present my case, the evidence spoke for itself. The hotel receipts, the damning audio recording, it all painted a clear picture of a man who had prioritized his own selfish desires over his family. Your Honor, my client's ex-husband made the conscious decision to engage in an extramarital affair, even going so far as to plan a romantic getaway on the very weekend his wife was due to give birth, my lawyer stated, her voice ringing with conviction. I could see the judge's brow furrow as she took in the information, her gaze shifting back and forth between Harrison and me. In the end, the court ruled decisively in my favor, granting me not only full custody, but also a hefty sum in alimony payments. Harrison's higher earning status and the circumstances surrounding his infidelity had sealed his fate. As we left the courthouse, Harrison's face was a mask of disbelief and anger. He stormed up to me, his eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I'll get my daughter back, even if it's the last thing I do." I met his gaze unflinchingly, cradling my daughter close to my chest. "You had your chance to be a father, Harrison, and you blew it." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him to stew in his own bitterness and regret. I had won this battle, and I would be damned if I let him take away the life I was building for my daughter and myself. From that day on, I vowed to be the best mother I could be. I would shower my little girl with all the love and stability that Harrison had so carelessly thrown away. And as for him, well, he could wallow in the consequences of his own actions. I was done letting his selfishness dictate my life. It was time to move forward, to embrace the fresh start that had been so hard won. And with my daughter by my side, I knew that anything was possible. The years that followed were a whirlwind of change and growth, both for me and my daughter. With the alimony I had secured from Harrison, I was able to pursue a long-held dream, starting my own business. It all began with a simple idea: creating high-quality, organic baby products that were gentle on a child's delicate skin. As a new mother, I had become increasingly aware of the harsh chemicals and synthetic ingredients found in so many mainstream brands, and I was determined to offer a safer, more natural alternative. With a small loan and a whole lot of determination, I set up shop in a cozy little storefront, pouring every ounce of my energy into making my vision a reality. Late nights were spent researching ingredients and perfecting formulas, while my days were a flurry of sourcing suppliers and handling the day-to-day operations. "You're a machine, Mira," Lana marveled one evening as she helped me package orders. "I don't know how you juggle it all." I simply shrugged, a tired but content smile playing on my lips. "It's not easy, but it's worth it. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm in control of my own destiny." And it was true. With each passing day, I felt myself growing stronger, more resilient, a far cry from the broken, betrayed woman I had been in the aftermath of Harrison's affair. As my business took off, word of mouth spread like wildfire. Mothers from all over the city flocked to my little shop, drawn by the promise of safe, high-quality products for their little ones. Before long, I had garnered a loyal following, with customers raving about the gentle effectiveness of my creations. "I don't know what I'd do without your miracle cream," one mother gushed as she stocked up on supplies. "It's the only thing that clears up my son's eczema flare-ups." Moments like those made all the sleepless nights and long hours worth it. I had found my calling, my passion, and I was thriving. Of course, not everyone was celebrating my success. Harrison, it seemed, was determined to wallow in his own bitterness and resentment. "Did you hear about your ex?" Lana asked one day, her voice laced with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Apparently, he lost another big client because of the whole cheating scandal." I shook my head, refusing to let Harrison's failures dampen my spirits. "That's his own doing. He made his bed. Now he has to lie in it." And lie in it he did. As my business soared to new heights, Harrison's career and reputation continued to crumble around him. The once promising lawyer had become a cautionary tale, a living embodiment of the consequences of infidelity and betrayal. But I refused to let his downward spiral affect me or my daughter. We had worked too hard, overcome too much, to let his toxicity seep back into our lives. Instead, I channeled all my energy into being the best mother I could be, showering my little girl with love and attention. Together we embarked on new adventures, explored new horizons, and built a life that was ours, free from the shadow of Harrison's mistakes. As the years passed, my daughter blossomed into a confident, resilient young woman, her spirit untarnished by the turmoil of her early childhood. And through it all, I stood by her side, a pillar of strength and unwavering support. In the end, Harrison's betrayal had been a blessing in disguise, a catalyst for me to find my true purpose and embrace the independence I had always craved. And as I looked back on the journey that had brought me here, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and gratitude. I had faced the darkness head-on and emerged victorious, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my former life. And with my daughter by my side, I knew that the future held nothing but endless possibilities.